Derek here from Okayest Hunter, taking you along for another little walk this morning. It is bright and early Sunday morning, second to last day of July. And I'm up at the cabin, the family cabin. Most of my family's still sleeping. My son was up watching a movie with Grandpa, and I decided this is the morning I'm going to sneak away for a little scouting trip. Don't get up to the cabin as much as I'd like to anymore, so scouting is pretty few and far between. Bow hunting up here doesn't happen a ton anymore, so I got to take time when I can get it. And this morning I could sneak out, so I'm actually sort of looking for a place for gun hunting already. So a couple months off, middle of November here in Wisconsin, but I'm scouting for a place to come up gun hunting. I always gun hunt up here at the family cabin, so I don't know if I'll get up bow hunting this year. Hopefully one weekend, maybe two, but this is kind of to look for a gun spot. So you can see I'm in some popple shoots. This is an area that got hit by a huge windstorm maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago, and has kind of been logged off. So really nice and thick, tons of regrowth here. Haven't been in this spot for a long time. I'm just heading back there now. But one of the challenges of scouting this type of area is it's going to be good. I'm on a little bit of a deer run here. You can see there's some droppings in here. But one of the main challenges of scouting any area that's been logged, or like this area has been, damaged by wind. So all the big canopy, you can see there's some pine. A lot of the softwoods, like pines, actually survived the windstorm because they flex so much. Like this tree right in the background here, you can see that pine is all bent over. But in the wind, they just flexed and survived. The trees that went down were the hardwood trees, like oaks, just snapped because they didn't have as much bend to them. And those trees really just all were snapped off, broken. So the challenge with scouting these areas is right now, the age that these popple shoots are, like this is going to be prime. This past year was probably pretty good for browsing for deer. This year it's providing cover and food. But the problem with that is because this year is going to be good, the sign isn't here yet. Like none of these trees are rubbed because they've all just grown this summer. Trails aren't in here yet because the deer haven't been traveling in this new terrain yet. So you're looking for a sign that doesn't exist yet. So really what you're scouting for is terrain traps, finding hills, little valleys, little saddles, how they relate to low-lying swamp areas. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for today. So I don't expect to see tons of rubs in here in July. I'm not going to be able to find a whole bunch of old rubs because the deer haven't been relating to this terrain the same way the last 2 years as they're going to this year. This year, all these popple shoots are over my head. It's going to provide cover, especially in the early season. And then by November, once the leaves are off, there's not going to be a ton of cover in here, but they're still going to use these areas for feeding and probably as some cover too. So that's the challenge I'm going to try to overcome today, is try to figure out scouting these spots without there being actual fresh sign or a sign from years past to show me where to set up. I got my new Latitude Carbon Speed Series stick with me, and I got 2 trail cameras. So the idea is find some terrain I think it looks good. I'm going to hang one, if not both cameras, if I find 2 good spots. And hopefully that'll kind of give me an idea as to what bucks are in here, how they're using it, and whether this would be a good spot to spend my opening weekend of gun season here in Wisconsin. So I'll take you guys along for the walk. I'm still heading back to the general area. If I see anything cool, I'll flip the camera on and show you guys what I find. All right, just found a pretty interesting little thing I thought I'd show you guys. I was thinking it in my head as I walked up to it, this little terrain feature, and sure enough, it does have a little bit of sign that I was thinking of, so I thought it'd be worth sharing. Right here, about 50 yards that way, where you can see the kind of light, airy sky over there. The hill drops away down to a little spruce bog. So I'm up above, not really on the transition of the swamp, I'm up above it. You can see right here, there's a trail that comes down from the bog there, kind of probably following the edge. There's some deer poop on the trail. But what I wanted to show you guys, old rub right here, little historical rub. What I wanted to show you was right up here. And here's a tip, anytime you're scouting, not necessarily for hunting, and I'll tell you why, but when you're scouting, anytime you find, as you guys know, an edge or a break in the terrain, it's always a good thing. So as I was walking through some kind of monotonous, low stuff, there's another old rub here too. I saw this break in the canopy. So all of a sudden there's this little opening. It's filled with ferns, and I always go check the edges of those openings. That one's pretty old, but a little historical rub there. You always got to go check these openings, because if there's a good buck using the area, traveling through this area or living around this area, they almost always will move through these openings and the edges of these openings. So here's the little opening right here. Just a little break. Looks like it was an old logging trail at one point. Looks like the bears like the opening too. Oh yeah, he's all chewed up, clawed up from bears. But this little opening here, you want to check these, because what happens is in any kind of monotonous terrain, you guys can see it's just thick timber through here. What's going to happen is these bucks will come to the edges of the opening, because imagine that little hole in the woods, right? The wind is blowing, no matter what direction the wind blows, from this way, it all gets sucked into this opening over the treetops, and you get a really good swirl effect right here. This one is especially good because right off this side, it drops into a little valley, a little drainage. So you're getting a little bit of thermal pull this way, and swirling winds come in here. So anytime I found, especially kind of up in the big woods, this is an awesome terrain feature. You get a ton of swirl here, and bucks will come in and visit these areas. It's a rub from last year. You can see some little broken limbs here, nothing crazy. But they'll come as they're traveling through into these little openings or along the edge, and they'll just get that swirling wind, and it just kind of reassures them, gives them that sense of security and safety, that they can smell all around them. So as I was walking to this spot, I noticed a trail coming across here, and in my head it was like, oh hey, this could be a good spot, a little trail right here for a camera. And I got to this is the northern edge of it, where it drops into that valley, and there was a scrape here right on the edge. You can see the licking branches kind of picked clean of any leaves. It's not a major scrape, but it is along this trail that drops down into the valley here. So just a little tip, definitely not great for hunting, unless you can be on the low side with a good thermal pull right before dark, to keep your wind out, because anywhere you set up, it looks tempting. Oh, look at beautiful shooting. But anywhere you set up, the reason that buck's coming here is because that swirling wind can allow him to smell from 360 degrees, because that wind is just gonna swirl. So that's why he's using it. So if you set up here and try to kill here, he's gonna smell you. He'll smell you before he gets into your shooting lane. So good area for cameras, good area for checking for sign, which is what I'm doing. I've not walked here before, so I was like, hey, I'm gonna pop into that opening, see if there's any rubs, buck sign, so I know at least, what's used in the area. I didn't see anything big, definitely nothing to write home about, but buck sign nonetheless. So I thought I'd share that with you guys. All right, just flip my camera back on here. I'm about 250 yards from that little opening I just showed you guys. I was walking kind of a mix. There was a mix of like birch and maple and some popple, but it was kind of open, and I just kind of came down. I'm on the edge of a hill here, and I can see just up in front of me the trees kind of change, and it turns into what looks like an older popple slashing. And immediately my interest kind of peaked, because what I've noticed Up here in this area is these older popple slashings. When the trees get like 20, 25 feet, becomes really, really good bedding. The understory opens up just a little bit, but it's really, really shady. And as soon as I got over here, kind of confirmed, really old rub there. But right up here, show you guys right on the edge, as I kind of started coming into the slashing here. Maybe 2 seasons old there. Rub here. This one probably 2 seasons old, actually killed the tree. Tree is now dead, but definitely a buck rub on it. Another rub here. This one looks like it might be from last year. Kind of hugging the edge of this little ridge here. This one's real low on the tree, but you can see some gouges in there. So yeah, this is looking interesting. I'm kind of right on the edge of this terrain change, going into this older clear cut here, or I don't know if it's a clear cut or what it was, but it's all grown up now. You guys can see this kind of stuff. If you can find any sort of terrain with hills, and especially steep little hills, they don't have to be big, but steep hills in this stuff, because it's so shady in here, man, the bucks will love bedding in this stuff. So that's what I'm gonna look for now. I've got a little southeast facing hill here that I'm working down, which would set up perfect for any kind of west, northwest wind for a buck to bed in here. So I'm just gonna kind of check this hill, maybe look for shed antlers too, because they could definitely winter in something like this. But wanted to show you guys that terrain change and how immediately, another rub here, how immediately when that hit that edge, and it's a soft edge, isn't super noticeable how that terrain changed. But as soon as you hit that edge, there's buck sign. Another rub here. As soon as we hit that edge, these bucks are on it. That terrain edge I was just talking about, I followed the edge of it, some rubs, right up to this big oak tree. And it's really hard to see on my little camera here, but I looked up into that oak tree, and man, it is just loaded with acorns. So some of them are already hitting the ground, but man, those branches up there are just loaded with acorns. So I put a pin on the map here. I don't think I'll get up here to bow hunt in the early season, but if I do, somewhere by this big oak and this edge of this old popple slashing would probably be a pretty dynamite early season spot, because obviously bucks have been in here before, and with that many acorns on that tree, there's not a ton of oaks out here because so many of them got destroyed in that windstorm. So I dropped a pin on Spartan Forge and wrote loaded oak. That's a good one. I like it. I've been following a faint trail on this side hill, inside this old popple slashing. Just came to a bed. It goes uphill very, very subtly behind here. So we're at the top of a hill. It starts to drop off right down here. I kicked a deer out of here. There was a deer right back off here that I would assume was bedded right there and heard me coming. Probably got up and waited, and then it took off. I did not get a look. But here you guys can see what the bed looks like. Definitely near the top of the hill, close to where it starts to drop off and get steeper. I definitely wouldn't call it a military crest. For those of you who are familiar with military crests, this hill does not drop off nearly as steep as what you would probably need for that. But kind of the same idea, I guess. This deer is trying to use as much terrain to its advantage as possible. So I thought I'd share that. I'm almost to the location that I wanted to scout. Oh, there's a rub coming into that bed. I did mark that bed on Spartan Forge, I'll definitely show you guys what that looks like on the aerial, probably right now during the video, just so you can kind of see what that bed is related to in this type of terrain in the quote unquote big woods, or bigger than normal woods. Nothing we have in Wisconsin is quite big woods like they've got out east, but similar ideas, I guess. All right, I'm gonna keep snooping. All right, guys, I think I got to potentially my first camera location. I've been walking up in that popple slashing, that old slashing. I showed you guys the bed. The bed was back there a couple hundred yards. And I came out to the edge of the slashing where there's like a bunch of small pine trees and stuff. And I found there's like a small little valley that comes out of the slashing and kind of meets the edge. And I was thinking about hanging a camera up on top of this little ridge in the popples. There's a couple trails that cross. Nice looking spot, but there wasn't a ton of buck sign there. But as soon as I came out to this little valley where it gets to a low spot and pitches out to this edge, I started seeing a whole bunch of historical rubs. And it got me pretty excited, thinking that instead of up on top there where I was originally planning to hang the camera, I think there's another rub there. And instead of hanging that camera up on top, I think I might hang it down here at the mouth of this little valley. I don't know if there's still bucks using this. I would imagine. I don't see anything super fresh for rubs, but there's a pretty good concentration of older historical rubs kind of feeding out of this little valley here. Oh, there might be another trail here. Yep, another trail here. Another historical rub. Another trail coming through this valley. Another rub there. Little green acorn. There's a couple of oak trees that are out on this edge here. Historical rub right back there. So here, we just got out to the edge. A couple oaks right on the edge here that I'm sure deer are gonna come out and feed on. Looks like they've got some acorns. So you can see the mouth of this valley. It's right in front of me, and it feeds out to this edge, and then this edge kind of right here we got a pretty good terrain change. This is all kind of low shrubs, ferns. It opens up into just some what looks like planted pines. There's some standing trees, oaks out there and whatnot. But I might try to set up a camera along the edge of this terrain change, the mouth of this little valley. I don't know, I haven't decided yet. There's not really like a good concentration where all the trails come together. Like up on the hill, all these trails came together in one nice spot, perfect spot for a mock scrape. I don't really have that right here in this spot, but it just feels more bucky. More bucky. It's buckier. More buckier here than it did up there. I don't know. I don't know what to do. This is the problem when you hang trail cameras. You get to a spot and you're like, should I hang here? Is this good enough? Or am I gonna walk 100 yards and find a better spot? That's always the predicament I'm in. So I marked this spot. I marked it, I don't know. I might walk around a little bit and see before I hang my camera. I got it marked. Yep, I'm gonna do a little walk before I put anything up and just see what's on the other edge here to make sure I'm not missing something blatantly obvious and having to come back, collect my camera and move it. So yep, that's what I'm gonna do. That's what I'm gonna do. This is a good fallback spot. So if I need to, I'll come back here. You never know. You never know what to do. At least I don't. That's why I bring multiple cameras. If you have a hard time deciding where to put your cameras like I do, just tell your wife you need more cameras. It's giving you anxiety. I've got anxiety. I don't know where to hang these things. I've only got this many. I need more. I'm gonna lose my mind. You don't want me having a mental breakdown, okay? We need more trail cams, more cameras, more cowbell, more trail cams. Let's go. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it on my phone video here, but I just thought I'd show you guys. I came across a big trail running the edge of the old clear cut, and it's one of those cool trails that the bears use a lot, and you can see where they put their foot every time they step. They've got their pad marks, so I'm gonna flip the camera around and see if you guys can see it. You can kind of see those little indents. There. That's where the bears put their feet. Kind of cool. The bears use this trail pretty heavy. It looks like it dives down into the swamp there, but the deer are definitely using it too. A little fresh rub from last year. Found a couple nice rubs in here. Still trying to figure out the sweet spot and where would be best to set a camera, and if I want to hunt here, where would be the best spot to hunt. There's the edge of the pines is right there. That's the young area that they had logged off and planted with pines. And then this is just a little patch of white pine. It's not very big. That heads down to the swamp. So it's kind of like a bunch of different terrain types meet. These planted pines I don't really care for that much. There's really nothing for the deer to eat in here. But it is kind of a cool little buffer between the swamp and this cut. I just don't know if I like this side better or the side that had all the popples better. So I'm trying to determine which side. Maybe I put a camera on each side and let that tell me what to do. That might be my best case scenario. So I'll probably be going back to the spot I didn't know whether I should hang the camera or not. Oh, here's some nice deep gouges. Now normally you'd have to think it's that bear or deer, but it's low enough. It's either a bobcat pulling on the tree or likely a buck rub since we're right on the edge. Some buck digging his horns in there. Can't eat the horns though, but I'd sure like to try. Nice trail coming in right off the edge here. All right, trail cam spot number one. It's not where I normally would like one, which is like tucked away in some thick stuff, but I think it's gonna be a decent travel spot, and it'll give me a good idea of what's moving through the area, not necessarily where they're living, but I should be able to get kind of a inventory. I don't really like that term, but should give me an idea of what kind of bucks are moving through here. I've got a big time trail. This is just a game trail in general, but a big time trail that runs kind of parallel to the edge of the thicket. And then there's an old skidder trail that comes out right here with some trails that kind of come up this way, side hill along this hill. And I kind of follow this old skidder trail right to this tiny opening. And then there's an old skidder that goes that way and an old skidder that goes up the hill. Right out here on the edge, I don't know if you can see, but right up there is a big oak tree. Yep, right there. There's two oak trees out there that have acorns on them. A bunch of old rubs in this bottom. So I think if the deer feed around, eat some of those acorns, they'll eventually just kind of hit this little travel corridor at the bottom of the hill. And right along this big trail, it's a nice oak limb. I'm gonna bend a few branches down, make myself a nice mock scrape here, in hopes that if any of the deer are kind of traveling anywhere through this side hill, this bottom little pinch, they'll stop by and check out the scrape and I'll get a picture of them. So I'm gonna hang my camera on that pine tree right there behind this birch tree, and it should be shooting out across this mock scrape and this little intersection of old skidder trails. So not my typical setup, but I think it'll work. So I'll show you my mock scrape. All right. Mock scrape is all set up. We got our oak limb. We got a big giant area of raw dirt here. And this is kind of the little intersection here. The little trail that comes out there. And then you can see there's an old skidder trail. It ducks under that deadfall. It's an old skidder trail that heads up the hill here. There's some old rubs around. One of the trails ducks off right through there. I'm gonna get some bears on my camera. This is definitely a bear rubbing post. You can see there's, I don't know if you can get that camera to focus on there. There's all kinds of bear hair on here. Ooh, there's some bear hair. They like to rub on this tree. It's nice and pokey. So I'll definitely get some bear photos here, but I think we'll be okay. One of the things with these mock scrapes, you guys will see in most of my videos when I'm hanging cameras, depending on the location, I almost always make some kind of mock scrape. If it's in a somewhat open or an area near a bunch of trails. And the main reason is I don't really plan on hunting over this scrape, but if I have trails that skirt the edge here and come up the side hill and are not going past my camera, a buck can't look over, see a big spot of raw earth, a licking branch, and not come. I mean, if he sees it, and this is a really open spot, if a buck sees these licking branches and this big area of dirt and smells the me pee, he's gonna come check it out, and I'm gonna get a picture of him. So the reason for the mock scrape is to draw in any deer within hopefully 30 yards to see licking branches, mock scrape. They see that earth and they just have to come and smell it. They gotta come. Bucks always just need to do that. It's a visual cue. When they see it, they wanna come check it out. So that's the idea. So now I'm gonna get my camera positioned back here on this pine tree. So it'll be looking out like that. Mock scrape is right here, licking branches here, and hopefully any deer that crosses through here, I'm gonna be getting pictures of. So camera number one, and then I think my second one, I'm gonna go back to the original spot and get it on that edge where there's acorns. So they'll be close, but should be getting different deer. I think it'll be good. All right, I just hung camera number one, and I was making my way across the corner of the little clear-cut pine plantation, and I found a little rub line heading up into the slashing. Sorry, shadow's really bad. Small rub from last year, but a decent trail here. I followed it up into the slashing, historical rub, and I found a pretty nice buck bed just up into the slashing on the side hill with a nice rub line leading out of it. Old rubs and some rubs from last year. Another trail exiting right here, I guess. Historical rub here. Little trail that goes down and exits. That's really good to know, because that oak tree just above where I hung my camera is loaded with acorns. And if there's a buck using this, very good chance he's gonna drop right down to the corner of that clear cut, that old cut, and eat some acorns. So here we go. I'm just showing you guys some of the rubs heading in, and then right here is the bed. So the bed is right there. There's some deer poop in it, nothing huge, but a nice little shaded spot. That's the bed. There's a rub right in the bed. So that's never a bad sign. So I'm gonna mark this on Spartan Forge as a buck bed. And that could be a really, really good early season setup if those acorns are dropping. But the good news is that buck bed is right between both of the spots I wanted to hang my cameras. So I got one to the north of them, and then I will have one to the south of that bed. Not that that bed is the end all be all. I mean, they can bed anywhere in this stuff. But it's just good to know that there is a well-used buck bed with some good historical sign there. So I'm just making my way down a little bit further, and I'm gonna get the second camera hung. I'll show you what that looks like in just a few minutes. Sweet. Yeah, buddy. All right, so I just showed you guys a buck bed. I'm back on the edge. I got pines to the east of me. Sorry, pines to the west of me. Old slashing to the east of me. And I was looking around where I took the video before, contemplating whether to put my camera in that bottom where the rubs came out, or on the edge of the oaks there. And I walked through there one more time and still couldn't find a spot that I was like super happy with. So I decided to follow the edge south further. And right in the bottom here, there was one really big old rub. Really big, but I mean, a couple years old for sure. And I decided to just keep coming. It looked like a little hillside here that kind of bumped out into the pines. So I just kept coming up the edge. Pretty good trail up here. This is the trail that I'm following right here. It heads up, and I got up here. There's a big, it's kind of a steep ridge. You can see here where they marked for logging. But the ridge kind of went off this way, and the popples, and these are actually maples on the edge here, I noticed bump out. So they make kind of a little undulation, a change in terrain. And just check this out. I'll show you guys. So I came walking up the trail here. I got to right here and I started liking what I was seeing. This little pocket. I noticed this big rub here. And it looked like a bed to me. This looked like a bed with a rub in it. And then I glanced over and found mega bed. Found the king size bed right there. Holy cow. Nice shady spot. Beautiful little edge here. It's got the pines right next to them. There's a little old rub there. Just a nice little hidden pocket here. So really excited that I went a little bit further and found this. I'm definitely gonna put my camera back over here, just 100 yards away, under the oak tree, and then there's a huge trail that kind of goes from oak to oak to oak across the pines. And I'm kind of curious as to what's crossing there anyway. So my camera should be able to catch whatever walks this edge and whatever crosses. And it'll be close to this bed. So should be able to get whatever's on here to walk by one of my cameras. So really exciting find. All right, trail cam number 2 is up. That means I am done for the day. This is the kind of spot I love hanging cameras. I think there's gonna be some really good action on here. So what we've got is, you guys saw the video of that really big bed. There's 2 beds. Nice little thick spot right on the edge. On the back side of the bed, there's an old skidder trail coming into the slashing with running tracks down it. So I think that's the escape route. I think I bumped a deer out of there. So I followed the old skidder trail and there's rubs the whole way. I think I flipped a little video. A really big rub here. This is the old skidder trail. It's all overgrown, but there's tons of historical rubs leading down it. So I got to this big rub. I was like, oh, that's kind of like a signpost rub. They've rubbed it in years past, and it's been rubbed recently with some really deep gouges. So I was like, that's been rubbed more than 1 year. I wonder if the trail that I was looking at in the beginning, inside the slashing, where I thought would be a decent place for a camera, I wonder if that trail intersects this trail. Well, right after the signpost, I took one step, and there's a trail that comes in right through this thick stuff from where I was before. This trail comes right along here and crosses right down there. So we've got a big internal crossing on 2 old skidder trails. Skidder trail running this way, big trail running this way. So right where the signpost rubs are, I've got a camera mounted right there up on the tree. And then there was an oak branch leaning up above. So I just bent it down for a licking branch, kicked open some dirt, get these bucks hopefully to stop here, get their photo taken. And I'm hoping to get travel with all these trails crossing. They should be able to come and hit this spot, get their photo taken. That is a black IR camera, which means it doesn't have the red glow. So in a real tight spot like this, especially at night, because there's so much canopy, it's so tight. If that was a red glow camera, I would worry about a mature buck spooking because it really stands out in the dark. But this is a black IR, so I like to tuck those away whenever I can in these real tight buck spots. So I got that set up. This Latitude carbon stick have been working awesome for me to make my mock scrapes because I can rip up so much dirt and grass with this. So I've been using this to rip up all the ground for me. It's been working really good, and using it to hang my cameras. So second camera's up. I think I got a really good spread here, 2 very different kind of spots. I should be able to tell what kind of deer are moving through this area. I think this camera is going to be awesome. So I'm on my way out now. Just want to show you guys that. I am going to pee in the scrape. I always pee in my mock scrapes. Does not seem to scare the deer, seems to attract them. They're very curious. So that's the last thing, but no video for that, sorry. All right guys, I'm on my way out of the woods. And I was thinking that, since these videos are just me kind of rambling around the woods, ambling, talking, just kind of telling you what I'm thinking, I might as well do a little recap. These are for, I don't want to say educational because I'm not an expert, and that's just not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to show you what I do. Whether it's the right way, the wrong way, maybe it's just a different perspective, something you didn't think about or something you thought about in a different way. Maybe you can cross-reference, figure out what I'm doing and find a better way to do it. That's the idea. We just want to get hunters talking. It's hard up here in the national forest to get on deer. So anything we can do to help and get you thinking maybe differently, creatively. A couple takeaways that I would say happened today. This is I would call it a new area to me. I did a walk through here during gun season about 12 years ago. So the woods looked completely different. It was when it was just logged, so everything was maybe waist high, and there was no windstorm that had gone through and toppled the standing trees. So I would say that this is like scouting a brand new area. I've never come in this way. I've never walked most of the spots I walked today, so it was mostly new. Takeaways from that were the older popple slashings. When the trees are 20 feet tall-ish, plus or minus 5 feet on either side, doesn't really matter because the deer will use them similarly. Look on steep terrain, any sort of knob or hill within those older clear cuts, especially along edges or terrain changes. And that's where the bucks like to bed. And that's pretty much what we found today. That last bed I found was just inside the older slashing. Where a terrain change took place, there was an undulation on the edge. The edge was straight, it jutted out. That combined with the fact that it was on a somewhat steeper hill than the rest of the terrain made it an ideal buck bedding location. From there, I followed rub lines. If you've read any of my articles on Okayest Hunter or ever heard me speak about deer hunting, you know I'm a deer rub fanatic. Those are my giveaways. Like, the bucks are telling you where they walk. They're telling you when they walk there. They're telling you how much time they spend there based on how many rubs they stack in certain spots. So I followed rub lines to lead me to where they were traveling to, where they were staging in cover, and that's how I hung my cameras. The last camera you saw me hang was in the thick stuff where two rub lines meet. It was just a good location, travel corridor. You can tell big bucks were using it because there was big rubs there the entire way. So that camera is going to give me intel on how they're leaving the beds or coming back to the beds, when they're using it, what time of year. The other camera, the first camera I set up, is in a way more open. That is a visually attracting area. It is close to feeding. There was oak trees 40 yards away that had acorns, and it's just a travel spot. It's at the corner of an old clear cut where two logging roads intersect near the bottom of a hill. It's just classic terrain travel. So that does not relate to the bedding in the same way or security cover as my second camera. And hopefully the photos kind of illustrate that point. I'm expecting that second camera in the thick slashing to get daytime movement, especially in October. I think that's going to be a daytime heavy camera. The first camera, I would be very surprised if there was any buck movement in daylight at all. Maybe in November when bucks are cruising, but that's not really why I hung that camera, to get daytime movement. I hung that camera in an effort to see what deer are traveling through that area, because that is just a really, really good travel pinch. So, two cameras, two different ideas, not that far apart. I'd say I can check on Spartan Forge later, but I would guess they're 500 to 600 yards apart, maybe. But that should give me the information I want to know. So that's the takeaway. Hopefully this video didn't bore you and got you thinking a little bit more about your strategy in the woods and how you tend to use trail cameras. So, hey, thanks for watching. See you guys on another one soon. Have a good one.